Paddy Pimblett has once again proven that when it comes to speaking his mind, no one in the UFC does it quite like him. The Liverpool native tore into Islam Makachev this week, unleashing a fiery rant in response to the former lightweight champion's dismissive comments about his status as a legitimate contender. With UFC 322 around the corner, Makachev is preparing to make the biggest gamble of his career, moving up to welterweight to challenge Jack Della Maddalena for the 170-pound crown at Madison Square Garden. The Dagestani powerhouse vacated his lightweight belt earlier this year, setting his sights on becoming a rare two-division UFC champion. In the meantime, Ilia Topuria seized the now vacant lightweight throne with a commanding victory over Charles Oliveira, instantly creating a new dynamic at the top of the division. That one also sparked the possibility of a blockbuster clash between Topuria and Pimblett. The two have a heated history, and after their explosive face-off at UFC 317, the matchup seemed like a natural next step for both fighters. However, when Makhachev was asked about Pimblett's potential title shot, he didn't hold back in shooting down the idea. "No, man, Paddy is not a real challenge," Makhachev said in an interview with ESPN. "Arman Tsarukyan has to be next because he deserves it. He made a mistake before, but he's still the #1 guy in the division and should be fighting for the title." Those words hit a nerve with Pimblett, who wasted no time firing back. "I hope JDM absolutely punches his little head in," he told UFC Europe, referring to Makhachev's upcoming opponent. "I hope JDM batters him. He's a much better boxer, and if he can keep it standing, he'll absolutely batter him, and I hope he does." Islam was chatting pony the other day, saying who has Paddy beat when he got his title shot after beating Bobby Green, someone I finished faster than him, the little bum. How about that one, Islam? Get back down to lightweight and I'll punch your head in as well. The scathing comments instantly went viral, drawing reactions across the MMA community. Some fans praised Pimblett's trademark bravado and his willingness to call out one of the sport's most dominant champions, while others laughed off his claims, pointing to the massive gap in skill and resume between the two fighters. Regardless, the outburst added another layer of intrigue to a lightweight division already overflowing with talent and personalities. For Makhachev, the focus remains squarely on his history-making opportunity at UFC 322. If he can dethrone Jack Della Maddalena, he'll join an elite club of fighters to have captured titles in two separate divisions. Meanwhile, Pimblett is still carving out his path toward a title shot, likely needing another signature win to cement his place among the top contenders. A matchup with Ilia Topuria remains the most likely option, a fight that not only delivers fireworks, but could also push the baddie into the world title conversation once and for all. Still, the idea of Pimblett one day meeting Makhachev in the octagon, while once unthinkable, now feels like a long-term possibility if both men continue on their respective trajectories. Their personalities couldn't be more different. Makhachev, stoic and clinical, versus Pimblett, loud and unpredictable. But that's exactly what makes the thought so compelling. For now, though, Pimblett's words have once again ensured that even from afar, he's staying firmly lodged in the head of one of MMA's most feared fighters.
Charles Oliveira has his sights set on yet another piece of UFC gold, this time Max Holloway's BMF title. After rebounding from his title eliminator loss to Islam Makhachev with a strong win over Matthias Gamrot at UFC Rio last month, the former lightweight champion wasted no time calling his next shot. Standing inside the octagon, Oliveira turned his attention toward one of the sport's most beloved fighters, asking UFC executive Hunter Campbell to make a BMF showdown happen. "Hey, Hunter, Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway, BMF, let's make that happen," he said with a grin, igniting instant excitement across the MMA world. For Oliveira, the issue isn't just about adding another belt to his resume, it's about legacy and redemption. The Brazilian star, who has long been one of the most entertaining and dangerous finishers in UFC history, believes that beating Holloway would re-establish his place among the elite and earn him another crack at the lightweight title. While attending APFC 20 in Milwaukee, Do Bronx doubled down on his desire to meet Holloway, insisting that the matchup makes sense both for the fans and for his career trajectory. "I think I'll have the opportunity to fight for the BMF title now, and if I get past Max, I think I'll be the next title challenger again," Oliveira told reporters. "It's the perfect fight for where I'm at right now." It didn't take long for Max Holloway to respond, and he was quick to embrace the challenge. The reigning BMF title holder made it clear he loves the idea of running it back with Oliveira nearly a decade after their first meeting. "That's the fight I want. That's a fight a lot of people want to see. We have history. There's not too many people right now that people are considering BMFs. But on that very short list, Charles Oliveira is one of them. So you tell me I get to go out there and defend the BMF title again against a man who's very respected, who I have history with? I'm in. Every time that fight gets brought up, he mentions the injury, so let's go figure it out for real this time." Their first meeting came all the way back in August 2015, when both men were still carving their paths towards superstardom. The bout ended abruptly just 99 seconds in, after Oliveira suffered a freak neck and shoulder injury, forcing him to withdraw and handing Holloway a first-round TKO win. Since then, both fighters have transformed into modern legends of the game. Holloway ruling the featherweight division for years, and Oliveira capturing the lightweight crown in 2021 while becoming the UFC's all-time submissions leader. Now, with Holloway holding the BMF title he earned by knocking out Justin Gaethje earlier this year, and Oliveira rejuvenated after returning to the win column, the timing couldn't be better for a rematch. A fight between two of the most aggressive and fan-friendly fighters in UFC history would be an easy sell, not only because of their history, but because of what's at stake. For Oliveira, it's a path back to championship contention and a chance to erase one of the few asterisks on his record. For Holloway, it's another opportunity to cement his reputation as one of the UFC's toughest and most respected warriors, a true embodiment of the BMF spirit. As of now, no official talks or contracts have been confirmed, but both sides appear eager. With Holloway expected to return early next year and Oliveira staying active and healthy, fans might not have to wait long to see one of the most interesting rematches of the next UFC season, a battle between two future Hall of Famers with everything to prove and nothing to lose.
Just days before UFC Vegas 111, fight fans were hit with some disappointing news as the card took a serious blow, losing not one but two undercard matchups ahead of Saturday's event. The card, which is set to be headlined by an intriguing welterweight showdown between Gabriel Bonfim and Randy Brown, has now been trimmed down after a pair of late withdrawals. Despite the setbacks, the event will still go ahead from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, though the losses have left a noticeable gap in what was originally expected to be one of the more stacked fight night cards of the fall. The first major shakeup came in the bantamweight division, where rising contender Adrian Yanez was set to face Christian Quinones in what promised to be a fan-friendly striking battle. Unfortunately, just a few days before fight night, reports emerged that Quinones was out of the matchup due to undisclosed reasons. MMA Mania confirmed the news following an initial post from Best Fight Picks on X, adding that the UFC was already working to find a short-notice replacement for Yanez. As of now, Yanez remains on standby, awaiting word on whether he'll still compete this weekend or be rescheduled for a later card. The timing couldn't be more frustrating for Yanez, who's been eager to rebound after a tough stretch of fights and re-establish himself as one of the division's most exciting strikers. While the Quinones withdrawal was the first to hit, another blow came soon after. UFC newcomer Robert Valentin, who was set to make his promotional debut in the event's opening fight against Jackson McVeigh, announced via Instagram that he'd suffered an injury and had no choice but to pull out. "Unfortunately, I've been forced to withdraw from my UFC debut due to injury," Valentin shared with fans, expressing disappointment at the missed opportunity but vowing to return as soon as possible. With his withdrawal, it's currently unclear if the UFC will find a late replacement for McVeigh or simply scrap the fight altogether, though given the timing, it seems likely that the bout will be postponed. The double loss now leaves UFC Vegas 111 with 11 total bouts, a slimmer card than originally intended, but still featuring several key names and potential breakout performances.
The main event between Gabriel Bonfim and Randy Brown remains intact and is one of the most compelling matchups of the weekend. Bonfim, an undefeated Brazilian prospect with a 16-0 record, has quickly built a reputation for his slick grappling and submission prowess. He's coming off a controversial win over veteran Stephen Thompson earlier this year, a result that drew debate but ultimately preserved his perfect record. A victory here could propel him into the welterweight top 10 and set up a major fight in 2026. Randy Brown, on the other hand, enters the bout full of confidence, following a highlight reel knockout win over Nicholas Dalby back in April. A crafty striker with strong finishing instincts, Brown has spent years hovering just outside the top ranks of the division. A win over Bonfim would arguably be one of the biggest of his career and might finally cement his place among the welterweight elite. The co-main event will feature an exciting flyweight clash between Joseph Morales and Matt Schnell, two fighters known for their fast-paced, technical styles and finishing ability. Schnell, in particular, has developed a reputation as a thrill-or-die fighter, often engaging in wild exchanges that end in dramatic fashion. Morales, meanwhile, is on a mission to keep climbing after finding consistency again following a rocky start to his UFC career. While fans were disappointed to lose the Yanez vs. Quinonez and Valentin vs. McVeigh bouts, the rest of the lineup still promises action across multiple weight classes. UFC Vegas 111 also carries added importance as the penultimate event at the Apex before the UFC wraps up its 2025 schedule. The final Apex card of the year will be headlined by a flyweight showdown between Brandon Royval and Manal Kape on December 13th, closing out what has been one of the busiest years in UFC history. Still, this latest string of fight cancellations serves as a reminder of how unpredictable the fight game can be. Late injuries, illnesses, and other unforeseen circumstances have plagued UFC events all year, forcing constant reshuffling and adjustments. For the fighters who remain on the card, though, UFC Vegas 111 now offers an even bigger opportunity to stand out. And for Gabriel Bonfim and Randy Brown, it's a chance to make a lasting impression in their first-ever main event spotlight. Yuri Prochazka is no stranger to pushing limits, physically, mentally, or spiritually. And now the reigning UFC light heavyweight champion has hinted that his next evolution could come in a completely new division. The Czech star revealed that he's seriously considering a move down to middleweight, depending on how the landscape unfolds at 205 pounds. Prochazka has already established himself as one of the most dynamic and unorthodox fighters in UFC history. His unorthodox movement, relentless pressure, and warrior philosophy have made him a fan favorite and a nightmare for opponents. Yet, despite his incredible success at light heavyweight, one obstacle continues to stand in his way: Alex Pereira. Since joining the division, Pereira has become a two-time world champion and Prochazka's biggest rival. Their two bouts were thrilling displays of skill and violence, with Poatan emerging victorious on both occasions. Understandably, Yuri has made no secret of his desire to avenge those losses. However, Pereira's current ambitions to move up and challenge John Jones at heavyweight next year have complicated matters. If Pereira vacates the light heavyweight throne and commits to a run at heavyweight, it could leave Prochazka at a crossroads. Either he continues defending his belt at 205 pounds against a new wave of contenders, or he takes on a new challenge entirely. Speaking backstage at Octagon 79, Prochazka opened up about the possibility of dropping to 185 pounds, admitting that it's something he's giving genuine thought to. For me, to cut to 93 kilograms, 205 pounds, is not a problem. I think to 84 kilograms, like middleweight, will be really something. I believe I can make it with my body because I know my body. So I believe I can make it, but it depends. I really first want to bring the title to Czech Republic, light heavyweight. It's a fascinating revelation from a man known for his discipline and almost philosophical approach to fighting. Prochazka has long said that martial arts, for him, are about self-mastery rather than just victory, and a move to middleweight would represent another test of that principle. Physically, the cut would be demanding. At 6'4", Prochazka has a large frame and considerable muscle mass, but his lean build and extreme conditioning might make it possible. Should he actually make the drop, it would instantly shake up one of the UFC's most competitive divisions. Fans would be eager to see how his wild style matches up against the likes of Israel Adesanya, Dricus du Plessis, Khamzat Chimaev, or Sean Strickland, all potential blockbuster fights. Still, before entertaining that possibility, Yuri insists that his immediate focus remains on his light heavyweight reign and bringing pride to his homeland. The 31-year-old has repeatedly spoken about his desire to elevate Czech martial arts and defend his belt in front of his home fans, which is yet to happen in his storied career. Whether he stays at 205 pounds, moves down to 185 pounds, or even one day ventures up to heavyweight, one thing is certain. Yuri Prochazka's story in the UFC is far from complete. With his relentless drive, philosophical mindset, and flair for chaos, every move he makes continues to captivate fans and reshape divisions.
Merab Dvalishvili has once again made it crystal clear he's not interested in fighting Alexander Volkanovski, even if the opportunity for a super fight presents itself. The reigning UFC bantamweight champion is on one of the most dominant runs in the sport today, and while many champions eventually start eyeing new territory, Dvalishvili remains steadfastly loyal to his division. The Georgian star has already put together an incredible 2025 campaign, successfully defending his bantamweight belt 3 times in a single year, an achievement few in UFC history can claim. And he's not done yet. Next month, Dvalishvili will headline UFC 323, where he's said to face his toughest test yet in a title defense against former champion Peter Yan. With that bout offering the chance to make history for the most title defenses in one calendar year, Merab's focus appears sharper than ever. Meanwhile, at featherweight, Alexander Volkanovski has reclaimed his championship glory after defeating Diego Lopez earlier this year. Naturally, that's led to fan chatter about a potential crossover super fight between the two champions, a matchup that would no doubt capture global attention. But Dvalishvili has no interest in taking that path, citing both respect and loyalty as his reasons. Right now, I'm good where I am. Number one, I have so much respect and love for Alexander Volkanovski, I could never challenge him. Second, I have a tough opponent and I want to focus on my weight class. If I feel I don't have any tough opponents left and I've beaten everyone, then maybe I'll move up, but I still don't want to fight Alexander Volkanovski. It's a statement that speaks volumes about Merab's mindset. In an era where many fighters are eager to chase money fights and multi-division glory, Dvalishvili seems far more concerned with legacy within his own class. He wants to be remembered not just as a champion, but as the greatest bantamweight of all time, a title some already believe he's earned thanks to his unmatched pace, durability, and relentless style. Even if he gets through Yan, the road ahead is far from easy. Rising contenders like Umar Nurmagomedov are waiting in the wings, and there's already talk of a potential rematch between the two should Dvalishvili retain his belt again. But that challenge doesn't seem to faze the machine. If anything, it fuels him. Dvalishvili's refusal to fight Volkanovski also draws an interesting parallel to his past loyalty to former teammate Aljamain Sterling, when he famously declined a title fight to avoid facing his friend. Dana White was publicly frustrated by that decision at the time, but since becoming champion, Merab has worked to rebuild that relationship and let his fighting do the talking. For now, his sights remain set on continuing to dominate the 135-pound division, not chasing super fights or extra belts, but making history one defense at a time. And if he keeps performing at this level, it's entirely possible that Merab Dvalishvili will go down as not just one of the greatest bantamweights, but one of the most disciplined and respected champions the sport has ever seen. Bo Nickal's name being bumped from the UFC 322 main card to the prelims definitely raised some eyebrows, especially considering how fast his career had been pushed into the spotlight up to this point. For a fighter who came into the UFC with as much hype as any wrestling prospect in years, a 3-time NCAA champion with viral finishes early in his run, seeing him lose his main card billing marks a quiet but telling shift in how the promotion might be handling his trajectory after his first professional setback. Nickal's originally scheduled bout with Rodolfo Vieira
was one of the more intriguing stylistic matchups on the UFC 322 lineup. Elite wrestling versus world-class jiu-jitsu, two specialists colliding in a fight that felt like a throwback to old-school MMA. It had the kind of built-in intrigue that usually earns fighters prime placement on a pay-per-view card, especially when it involves someone with Nickal's crossover appeal from the amateur wrestling world. But the UFC reshuffled the lineup just weeks before the event, promoting Beneil Dariush versus Benoit Saint-Denis to the main card instead, and sliding Nickal down to the featured prelim slot. Still a visible position, but not quite the spotlight he's used to. It's a notable change for a guy who's never fought outside the PPV portion since joining the UFC. Nickal made his debut on the main card at UFC 285, returned for the massive UFC 300 show, and even competed on last year's Madison Square Garden event, UFC 309. To now find himself on the prelims of another New York card feels like the first real humbling moment of his career, at least in terms of perception. It's also a reminder that the UFC, for all its hype building, doesn't hesitate to pull the reins on a prospect after a loss. That first defeat came earlier this year against Reinier de Ridder, a fight that exposed holes in Nickal's defensive grappling and composure under adversity. It was a valuable learning moment, but it also slowed the hype machine that had been running non-stop since his Contender Series debut. Moving him down to the prelims could be the UFC's subtle way of letting him rebuild without the intense scrutiny that comes with every main card slot. Nickal's reaction to the initial announcement was pure bow, half joking, half defiant. He posted on X that maybe his placement on the card was rage bait, hinting that the UFC might be stirring fan debate on purpose. He acknowledged that he still draws a crowd, particularly among American wrestling fans, and seemed unbothered by the move, keeping his tone optimistic about getting back in the octagon. That kind of mindset probably helps. For someone with his competitive background, being told to prove himself again is nothing new. Rodolfo Vieira remains a dangerous opponent, a multi-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion who's been steadily improving his MMA game. For Nickal, it's another chance to show that he can apply his wrestling dominance against an opponent who's just as lethal once the fight hits the mat. It's also a stylistic test that hardcore fans are eager to see, even if it isn't on the PPV broadcast. UFC 322 is stacked, with Islam Makhachev moving up to challenge Jack Della Maddalena and Valentina Shevchenko facing Zhang Weili in a rare champion versus champion fight. In that kind of lineup, it's not exactly shameful to be shifted down a spot. But for Nickal, it's a reminder that nothing is guaranteed in the UFC. The main card spotlight comes and goes, and a single stumble can send even a top prospect back to proving grounds. If anything, this could be the reset Nickal needs. Fewer distractions, less pressure, and the chance to remind people why he was such a big deal to begin with. A dominant win over Vieira would silence a lot of the talk about him being overhyped, while another stumble would raise serious questions about whether the UFC's push came too soon. Either way, the prelims might not be the punishment it looks like. It could just be the perfect place for Bo Nickal to start rebuilding his legend.